I'm a little more than just slightly honored to have with us today an individual who not only embarks upon Black history, but whose family has also been involved in Black history for decades. His family has been involved in our community for decades. His family has played a role in the economic and sociological advancement of our community for decades. And this is February. This is Black History Month, and it's really, really important that we tend to acknowledge, recognize, you know, the significance of not only Black history, but history, period, but particularly Black history. And sometimes we overlook the role that a good knowledge of history can play in the development and the advancement of our community. And part of our mission today, part of our objective today, is to impart some of that information, not only from his family's perspective, but also what history means and the significance of history and how history ought to be more intertwined in our everyday lives. And that family is the Duval family, and that individual that we are interviewing today is Dr. Thomas Duval, who not only is a part of the family, but as I said, he's part of, just touting and promoting and letting the community know the importance of Black history. How you doing, Doc?
I'm doing pretty good. I think what you're saying is I'm officially a dinosaur now.
No, you're not. Not at all. Not at all. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, and in doing that, what I'd like for you to do is kind of incorporate your family history. Go back and talk about the development of the upholstery shop and what that meant to our community economically. But I do want to segue into history now. I know that you've been intimately and intricately involved in promoting and advancing Black history for quite some time now, even to the point of doing a coloring book that kids can use to kind of help to enhance their knowledge of Black history. So just go ahead and start a little bit with your family and let's segue into
Oh,
modern activities.
okay. I started researching my family's history, and I came to find out that we came off a plantation from South Georgia, and we got here in the 1870s. The,
Wow.
the interesting thing about my journey with my family's history is simply this: it wasn't that long ago that African Americans generally didn't talk about their history, especially when it goes back to the antebellum South. Of course, kids today, you got to tell them what an antebellum is. You got to tell them before the Civil War. And unfortunately, you got to tell high school students what the Civil War was.
Wow.
But anyway, we got here around 1870, and my great grandfather, he actually started working in a mattress factory, the Willingham Mattress Factory, and I think that's where he learned his sewing skills. And essentially, what happened was he recognized, I guess you call that market assessment today. We got all these big terms for this stuff today. But basically, he discovered that Southerners could trace their whole history, and Southerners love their history, and I'm one of them too. I love my history. I don't tell folks that I'm an academic historian. I'm a lay historian that just loves his Georgia red clay. And that's what I've spent my retirement years in. But anyway, he got his sewing skills together and he recognized that Southerners could trace their whole family history through their furniture. And so furniture was made very well in that era, and it was being reupholstered. And of course, that means you put the stuffing and the cloth back on it when it wears out. Of course, today, a lot of kids don't even know what the term upholstering means anymore
Uh,
because they're not familiar with it. So, anyway, he started a business. He also had a horse and what you call a dray. He started a moving business, moving and packing, because in the day of the old steam railroad, to ship something, you had to put it in a wood crate. And so he started off with moving, storage, wood crate, and then upholstering. And then later on, he added awnings and so forth. And he started near where the auditorium is today, and eventually moved up on Cotton Avenue, across the street from the Walton Building and the Pythian Temple. And I was basically raised spending, my summers down at our what we call the shop. And it wasn't until I was 60 something years old that I realized that the second black architect in the United States of America was from Macon, Georgia, and he designed the Pythian Temple, Wallace Rayfield. And I was literally looking out of our shop at that building in the summertime, 5, 6 days out of the week. But we have that rich history here. And anyway, he stayed in business, and then his son joined the business. And he wanted to go into business because he wanted to educate his son. And that was Paul Duval Jr. We call him Paul Duval #2 because we got so many doggone Pauls in the family that we just give them suffix numbers. But anyway, Paul Duval #2 went to Haynes Normal Institution in Augusta, and that school was started by Lucy Craft Laney. The Reverend David Laney was her father, and as we say, he rang the bells of emancipation when the United States colored troops finally arrived to Macon. And he was there, of course, at the surrender of Macon, and and that was her father, and that was also the church that my great grandfather and grandfather had gone to, the Washington Presbyterian Church. And of course, today, it still exists, and it's, in the downtown area on Washington Avenue today. So it's those kind of connections. After I started with my family, I began to realize that my history was really connected to Pleasant Hill and ultimately to Macon and Middle Georgia. And that's what I've spent my time doing. I'm a public health dentist. I finished Howard University undergrad, and I went to dental school there. I got a degree in public health from Johns Hopkins University, and I worked in the prison system for something like 14 years, part-time work with the YDC. And I began to really ask the question, why do we have so many of our young folks winding up in this prison system and they keep coming back? And all these smart people are scratching their head trying to figure out why the recidivism rate is so high. Well, ultimately, I came to the conclusion, I guess you say I had an epiphany.
Hmm.
There were two things that needed to be addressed. One, these kids, these young folks, they don't know who they are. And the public school system has not taught them who they are. Okay, and so they think they are that gang. That gang sign is their total identity. The second thing I realized is simply this: they weren't reading. An adult that's not reading at 12th grade level, there's virtually no work that he can really do to sustain a family. So they got to read at grade level. So combining those two ideas along with, you know, phonics, the science of reading, and God knows I'm so grateful that this great state of Georgia has followed the road of Mississippi in finally bringing phonics back to our school system. So anyway, it's that combination of things that I think we really have a solution to stop that school to prison pipeline by imparting our rich history and getting our kids to read at grade level. And that's what I've been devoting my time with. And that's what I think the real worth of our history is today. So, and I want to personally applaud you for doing such a great job of putting a lot of our history in your Black Pages annual book. I think that's just wonderful. And that book will be a legacy document for just years to come because we need to disseminate that information and we got to be able to get it to the kids. So that in a nutshell is what I've been doing and what I enjoy doing. And I figured that we have to find engaging ways to get. It's got to be fun filled and engaging. So you and I were back in school in the day. If you weren't paying attention, they had a way to really get you motivated right quick. But those days are gone now. So we've got to use this great history to motivate and inspire our kids. So that's what I've been doing, and that's what I've been enjoying doing along with you, of course, doing the bicentennial activity.
Well, thank you, Doc, for those words. And I realize that, and the thing that's kind of bothersome is, it's going to take a village. It's going to take an entire community, and we have to. This is National Black History Month, but I think that we need to join hands together to first of all realize the importance of history and the role that it plays every day in our concepts of ourselves and our understanding of what has happened to us and our understanding of how to deal with the present and how to try to forge the future. And as you know, there have been certain efforts across the country to de-emphasize the relevance and the importance of history. So I'm saying that to just try to encourage everybody, particularly those of us who came through the civil rights movement, that we got to continue the legacy, but we also got to continue the education and the information. And I think there's no more appropriate time than to try to look back, pause and review where we came from and how we got where we are and what we need to do in order to move ourselves and our community forward. And the interesting thing, a lot of people don't realize the role that history plays in present day actions, impressions, emotions, and activities. So, listening to you, you are saying that part of the problem with our young people is that they don't understand our history. They don't know about the color water fountains and the back of the bus and the freedom rides and the sacrifices, if you please,
No,
that a
nor
lot
do
of
they
our
know.
ants. Go
Nor do
ahead,
they
sir.
know about all of these iconic figures that made it through through almost impossible odds. They think they got it hard, you know, but they just don't know the history of their people, of what they had to do. And we've got all of those iconic figures right here in Macon, Middle Georgia. We got a ton of them right over there in Linwood Cemetery, but we're not teaching our kids about them. That's the problem.
Yeah, and that's true. So let's talk about a couple of things. First of all, I want you to say what the community. What no. I want to start with what you have done. Talk a little bit about your coloring book because I think that's significant, and I think that can make a role, can play a role in trying to disseminate, important information about those people that you just mentioned, and about how that can affect the mindset and the thinking of our young people. So talk a little bit about that coloring book, and then also talk about other activities in which our kids can get involved and the community can get involved to kind of address this problem.
I put together this coloring book because certainly coloring is an activity that young kids love to do. And every year I've been sponsoring a coloring contest, and I'm going to continue that with an organization here this month. But anyway, this coloring book has our iconic figures in it. And what I wanted someone or several people to do was simply to take the idea of the coloring book and make one for your part of the state. And basically, what I started off with was with coloring sheets. And a coloring sheet just has a picture on one side and then a script on the back. And then the child can color that, and then you can have an activity around the script on the back. I've actually had uh, students, even high school students, stand up in front of a green screen, and I would tell them, okay, we're going to make a hip hop rap video, music video. And I said, but it's going to be about William Saunders Scarborough. And they said, well, who is that? And then I would tell them, William Saunders Scarborough is a man who was a slave. He went from being a slave to the president of Wilberforce College, and he lived over in East Macon, Georgia. And we can be standing there, going over the script, having them read the script, and I'm covering everything all the way back to phonics, all the reading skill sets to get them to participate. And in the process of learning some of these skill sets, they're also learning about the history, and they're having fun. And I get Brother Vincent Muhammad to come in, and then we do the hip hop, music video. But that's the way you got to make it engaging activity. They call it culturally relevant, but it's got to be an engaging, fun-filled activity that gets the kids involved, and you almost have to surreptitiously be teaching them what they need to know, and they really don't know that you're doing it, but they are getting the information, and being able to learn to read and comprehend and appreciate who they are. Intrinsic motivation is where we have missed it across the United States with African American kids. They've got to be self motivated to want to learn and to want to learn to read. And let's be straight up. We're finally going back to phonics, but phonics is not easy. If you had kids that want to participate in that old simple thing that wasn't working, when you start delving down into phonics, it requires additional work. So you got to get them motivated to want to do that work. So don't just give children sight words. Give them some sight words about a story that they can decode about their local history.
Right.
Let them see themselves in the material that they are using to learn to read. That's not rocket science.
Mm.
Kids need to see themselves in the materials that they are using to learn to read. And here's the irony of it all. We are living in the information age. And I'm a dinosaur. I've taught myself video editing and cartoon animation. Now we can't wait for Hollywood to
Mm.
produce this stuff. We got to produce our own stuff, our own place-based local stuff using our own place-based history. That's the solution. And that's why I really believe we can really reach the beloved community because we've got all the resources right here in Macon, Georgia, to be a template for the United States because we've got, for example, Linwood Cemetery, and we have our history in the library. And we are celebrating Mr. Tuggle. Miss Jackson has a history group that meets once a month, and she's got an activity coming up to celebrate Mr. Tuggle, who started, getting those resources when you and I were in high school and so forth. Over there at the Amelia Hutchins Library on Madison Street, but actually that was the Negro Academy for the Blind building that had been recycled to become the Amelia Hutchins Library. And what most of us didn't know, including myself, was L.H. Williams and his wife ran that facility. Those are the kinds of things we need to be imparting to our kids. So we got a choice. We can have our kids run around here with these gang signs, flashing signs, and colors and all that craziness. Or we can have them run around here with some t-shirts or some images of our local iconic historic leaders. That's the solution. And if we incorporate that history with a strategy on reading, using the science of reading and phonics, people be flying in here from all over the United States trying to figure out what we did. And it's not that hard. You just got to be ready and willing to do it.
I totally agree. Well, let's not leave the people hanging. Uh, Now, let's talk about how an individual, an organization, an entity, a church, and our business can kind of join in with you. I mean, what would be the process? I'm sure that we could get this thing to spread like wildfire if more people were involved, and there are some advantages, there's some activities involved. It could work at daycare centers, it could work at elementary schools, it could work in the private residential of individuals. It can work in churches. So just kind of talk about how the process that can be used to get more people and entities involved.
Well, I think you pretty much summed it up with what you just said. Every one of those entities needs to be involved with getting our kids to read at grade level, and they need to be using our history and culture to do it. They need to be producing graphic novels slash comic books, that the kids will be interested in. They need to be setting up green screens and letting them portray the people, doing hip hop rap videos. We have Music City. Let them make some music about some of our iconic figures. And here's the most important thing: we have a lot of philanthropy in this town, but it all needs, every cotton picking penny of it needs to be put on getting our kids to read at grade level, because reading at grade level will stop the school to prison pipeline. The reason why: you can get a middle class job if you read at 12th grade level. And if you don't, you're pretty much out of it in terms of finding something to support a family. So, yes, after school programs, churches, community centers, all of them, we can do STEAM projects where we're teaching them how to video edit, do animation, learn music, you know, learn how to be actresses and actors. We can do all of that. But the base of it is our history and culture and getting them to read at grade level. And if we do that, we've got the solution. And I'm telling you, once you get started on that solution, they'll be flying in here from all over the cotton picking United States, pun intended, to find out what we're doing down here in the great city of Macon, Georgia.
Well, I appreciate that, and I fully agree. And so, what I'm going to ask people to do, if in fact you've got some interest or some ideas, we don't want to bombard uh, Dr. Duval, but if you would just reach out to me, I'm going to try to develop something on makingblackpages.com. We've all Dr. Duval already has an article on in this year's publication that can be found on the website makingblackpages.com. But kind of stay tuned to some ways that we can get the entire community involved. Go ahead and get the knowledge. You can send me an email at habersham7@gmail.com if you got an organization or an idea. Or if Dr. Duval wants you to just email him, we're not going to tell everybody to call him. But if you've got an idea or question, I think you can email him and then he can direct you to whatever resources are available. It's the funny thing about this community, it's kind of bandwagonish. And once we get that to rolling, people will run and jump on it. This is a call to action. And before we get out of here, Doc, you mind giving your email address?
TDUVAL1976 @gmail.com. And in the back of my coloring book, and you can find an older edition down at the Tubman, but anyway, I have my Facebook page there. One more plug I want to put in, and that's for Miss Muriel McDowell Jackson at the Washington Memorial Library. She has a history club group or a history group that meets once a month in the genealogical section of the library. We need to get more people to participate and bring in even more of these resources. She's done a wonderful job. She's a walking encyclopedia of really of history in general, but certainly of African American making little girls of history. So contact her at the Washington Memorial Library in the genealogical section, because I would love to see even more people show up for those meetings. So she's done a splendid job on that. And again, I thank you for putting this information out there.
Yeah, you're very welcome, Doc. It's my pleasure. I thank you for the interest that you've taken in trying to address the school to prison pipeline. And I think that methodology that you have conceptualized can make a measurable difference in our community. And I encourage the entire community to support it. My email is habersham7@gmail.com. Dr. Duval's email is tduval1976@gmail.com. This is a call to action. I'm your host, Alex Habersham. Uh, don't just know it's Black History Month. Do something. Play a role. You know, be a part of something positive that will embrace history and help our community to move forward based on where we were. That helps us to determine where we need to go and how we need to get there. Thank you so much, Dr. Thomas Duval. Appreciate your coloring book. And then anybody who's interested in finding a book, he said there are some at the Tubman Museum. But just email both of us, and we will see to it that whatever inquiry you have, we will be able to answer. This is a call to action. I am your host, Alex Habersham, having interviewed Dr. Thomas Duval. Have a great day.
www.makingblackpages.com